So if you've been following along a little bit on the Instagram page, I've been talking a lot about sugar. And as someone that has tried all of the diets and was pretty die-hard carnivore for a while, I have completely changed my mind about sugar, and because of that have noticed tremendous changes in my health, improvements in my health. So just wanted to talk a little bit more about what is going on with sugar fears. And I think a lot of it is just a misunderstanding of what is actually leading to chronic disease. So a lot of people assume that it's the sugar that's causing obesity, that's causing diabetes, that's causing cancer, when in fact research is showing that it's more of an excess of dietary polyunsaturated fats that are blocking respiration of the cell, and this leads to elevated levels of free fatty acids, which then cause a spike of insulin. And then when that is elevated for far too long, that's what can eventually lead to diabetes. So in terms of breaking down sugars, I'm not really talking about white sugar in general. That I see as a great tool to really boost the metabolism, but it shouldn't replace other more nutrient-dense foods. It should be combined with it. So I'm thinking like, a lot of people have their cane sugar soda with liver. You're using the sugar to really boost the absorption of the nutrient density of the liver. So again, when I'm talking about sugar, fructose from fruit interacts with blood sugar levels so much differently than glucose from starches do. Starches actually break down really, really quickly. Ray Peat talks about this cool study where they fed rats cornstarch, and when they dissected them, there was no trace of the cornstarch, suggesting that it was in fact absorbed really high in the alimentary canal, closer to the duodenum, which is right where the intestine meets the stomach. On the other hand, fruit break down a little bit more slowly. So this is good news for people with blood sugar imbalances, because you're not going to get that surge of insulin and then therefore that surge in adrenaline when the body tries to rebalance. But it can also be an issue if you have any kind of bacterial overgrowth, because again, the starches break down easily. Ideally, if they're well cooked, like a really well cooked potato or even really, really mushy rice, even really mushy oats, you'll be absorbing that much higher up in the tract before the bacteria can start feeding. Fruit can be a little problematic because, say it's breaking down more slowly, that also gives it more time for bacteria to feed. And if you are one of those unlucky individuals that have an overgrowth, or if bacteria has translocated from your intestine up into your small intestine, or your colon up into your small intestine, as those bacteria feed, they're going to release endotoxin, they're going to release gases, which cause bloating and therefore slow down motility even more, and that creates this vicious cycle. The more gas, the slower things are going to move through you. The slower things are moving, the more inflammation and irritation is happening, and over time, the alimentary tract or your intestine are going to start to become inflamed, and their rhythmic contractions are not going to move food along as well as they could. So again, context is everything, but I think it's really important to understand that the fear of sugar and just blindly believing dogma might be doing more harm than good. And I fell victim to this for so long, following low-carb healing diets to manage Lyme's disease and other chronic issues. And little did I know that I was harming my liver. And I was taking all these liver-supporting detox herbs, forgetting that the basic building blocks like glucose is required for proper liver function on top of, B vitamins and protein. So I also wanted to talk about how protein eaten alone without carbohydrates can also lead to a spike in insulin, which then triggers a stress response in the body. So again, here we are blaming sugar in this blind vacuum without really seeing what's going on a cellular level. And it's not as simple as looking at foods based on their glycemic index, because if we eat fruit with a fat, that's going to slow down its absorption even more. Or if we eat starch, like a big potato with fat, that will slow down its absorption and allow it to break down a little bit more slowly as it moves through us. And I'll end with the idea that I think the protective effects of sugar are really starting to show, and people are noticing the differences once they start to include nutrient-dense fructose sources into their diet. But there's still this feeling that, ooh, this isn't good for me. I've been sick for so long, I shouldn't be eating this. So if sugar fears are adding to your inability to eat certain foods and preventing you from fully enjoying foods, or switching from a more carnivore-based, keto-based kind of rigid way of eating, and you want to make a change, feel free to reach out to me. And I think once you get the brain on board and realizing that the liver requires glucose to function normally, that your cells function more effectively and actually produce more carbon dioxide when they have fructose to utilize, everything else starts to work better. So if fatigue is an issue, if autoimmunity is an issue, if you are amenorrheic, if you just have hormonal imbalances, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, if you're bloating after you're eating, these all give clues as to some kind of imbalance. And it's not the carbs that are the issue. The carbs reveal that something is off. But you can use carbs as these functional foods, choosing specific types, avoiding certain fibers if you have some overgrowth, to finally work backwards and let your body heal, give your cells the energy they need to heal. So feel free to drop a comment below if you find any of this intriguing. If you're interested in certain types of fibers, certain types of sugars, what kinds of carbs to include, what about white sugar, what about brown sugar, allergens, honey, the list goes on. But this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, so feel free to reach out.